Welcome back to Matt Presents, the show where I have movie nights and then talk about them. Before we get started, I think we should address last week's episode. Two things about it. First off, it went up Saturday night instead of Friday night like usual. That's my bad. I just forgot to make it public. It was up on Patreon since Thursday, so... Sorry, I forgot to make it public. That's my bad. Also, some people were concerned that it was maybe not in the best taste to talk about blaxploitation films in the midst of all these Black Lives Matter protests. And I understand why people would feel that way, but I picked those movies weeks ago. You have to understand, like, I recorded the Ruddles video like mid-May. I recorded the Ruddles video like May 22nd. So since the 22nd, I've had those movies locked in to be talked about. And I showed the movies on May 29th, which is like the day the riots started. So it occurred to me that maybe that was not a great time for it, but I'm like, I picked these movies weeks ago. The two are unrelated. I didn't just decide to review blaxploitation movies because of the Black Lives Matter protests. These were separate incidents. So last week, 2 weeks ago actually. So, last time we had Icons of Sci-Fi Toho Collection, a collection of sci-fi horror films from Toho Studios. In fact, all three specifically from Inoshiro Honda, the director of Godzilla. So, the guy behind Godzilla, a man you can trust. The first movie we watched was Mothra, which is one of my absolute favorites. I said this last time, I like Mothra better than Godzilla. And I mean, I like the movie Mothra better than the movie Godzilla, and I like the character Mothra better than the character Godzilla. So all three movies are on this triple feature, but I have Mothra in this nice Steelbook Blu-ray, which was actually, like, free. I got it for free, and then I'm like, crap, I already had it on DVD. But whatever, it's nice to have on Blu-ray, especially this nice steelbook. It looks nice, got this nice little slipcover. Put out by Mill Creek, of all fucking distributors. They're the ones who do those, like, big-ass, let me grab one. Big-ass 50 sci-fi film collections boxes. And they did, like, a special edition release of Mothra. Go figure. It was like, buy two, get one free on Amazon, and I already had two, and I'm like, well, what's a third one? Because they were not very forthcoming with what all counted for that deal. And finally I found Mothra Steelbook Blu-ray, and I'm like, alright, if it's free, I'll take it. Yeah, I like Mothra better than Godzilla. Both the movie and the character. I think the movie's better because I like the human characters a lot more. There's a lot more for the human characters to do in this movie. Because, part of it is what I like about Mothra more. Mothra has, like, a better lore, a more in-depth backstory. Godzilla's just, like, a monster. That was, he was created by nuclear power. He got upset and destroyed a bunch of shit. That's Godzilla. That's all there is to him. Mothra has a specific job, a specific duty. There's these two tiny, tiny girls, and they are the gods of this island, and Mothra is their protector, so when they get kidnapped from the island, Mothra hatches and comes to wreak havoc until they are returned. He's given a lot more to do. I think the original Mothra might actually be a she, might be a woman. Don't hold me to that. there are... Because it's not the same Mothra in every movie. It's different Mothras every time. So he's got a lot more to do, and there's a lot more involvement from the human characters. There's a lot more they can do, because now they're concerned with, getting these two little girls back to Mothra and back to their island, so that Mothra will leave them alone, which you don't have in Godzilla. In Godzilla, it's a bunch of pointless fighting, and then Godzilla just leaves. So yeah, I like Mothra better for those reasons. And I like the characters in this movie, like the human characters in this movie. They're a lot more interesting, I think, than the humans in Godzilla. And not just because they have more to do. They do have more to do, and I appreciate that. It makes the plot have a little more stakes than in Godzilla. But also, like, I don't know, I've just always enjoyed stories about journalists. So, it's this story about these news reporters, going in trying to find all this, like, corporate corruption, find out what's going on with this island that this other country's bombing. Oh god, it's a fake island. I can't remember the name, or a fake country. I can't remember the name of it. It's mostly supposed to be America. It's like America and Russia combined, but it's mostly America. Like, they go to that country and they speak English in that country. In the original Japanese version, that's what I was watching. The original Japanese. No American versions here. We watched the American version of Battle in Outer Space, but that's because the American version and the Japanese version were the same length, so... if the Japanese version's longer, we're gonna watch the original. We're gonna watch the uncut version. But Battle in Outer Space, so it's fine watching the American version. Yeah, that's Mothra. I love it. It's one of my favorite Kaiju. It probably is my favorite Kaiju. I'm gonna go out and say it is my favorite Kaiju film. Although some of the follow-ups are also very enjoyable. Mothra vs. Godzilla and King Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, which also features Mothra. And that's another one where, like, I end up liking Mothra more than Godzilla, because they give the monsters more of a personality in that one. There's, like, a whole scene of Mothra and Godzilla and Rodan arguing with each other. And it's clear Mothra is the reasonable one, the thinker, the, like, hey, we've got to team up and we got to destroy King Ghidorah. I won't spoil it. We probably, almost certainly, will be watching that movie eventually. We'll watch the whole Godzilla movies. We'll watch a bunch of them. Not all of them. I'm not promising you all of them, but we'll watch a bunch of them. We'll watch the original Godzilla eventually, I promise. It won't just be Mothra, but I like Mothra, so we watched Mothra tonight. After that, we watched Battle in Outer Space, which is, like, kind of the first just straightforward sci-fi movie we've watched so far. Like, we had Gokei the Body Snatcher, and we had Tarantula, but those were both, like, horror sci-fi. And even Mothra's kinda horror sci-fi. Godzilla is much more sci-fi than Mothra. Mothra's more like King Kong, just like some creature they found on an island. Yeah, just a pretty straightforward sci-fi movie. Not my favorite. There are other movies from that time, other similar movies from that time I kind of like better. Particularly, Forbidden Planet. Forbidden Planet came out about a year before this. There are still interesting aspects to it. It seems like it is almost certainly an inspiration for Star Wars. Because they find the big alien, like, the leader's ship, the big destructive one. They're like, oh, we gotta take it down. And they're like, we can't destroy it with our normal weapons. Oh, wait, it has a tiny little weak point. We gotta sneak in and destroy it from the weak point. And it's like, hey, wait, that's the plot of Star Wars. They do that in Star Wars. Very War of the Worlds um although War of the Worlds, they come to Earth and start invading, and in this one they've like attacked Earth and we go out in space to fight them. It's called Battle in Outer Space. That's another thing that reminded me of Star Wars. There was a big battle near the end, and instead of flying like rockets, they had jet planes that went into space. And it reminded me a lot of, the X-Wings and the big space battles they have in Star Wars. So almost definitely an inspiration for Star Wars, as well as a few other movies, clearly drawing on inspiration from this movie. Although this movie was probably inspired by Forbidden Planet and maybe even War of the Worlds. When did the first War of the Worlds movie come out? War of the Worlds, 1953. So that would have been, a couple years before this. So yeah, it was just sort of a sci-fi trend in those days. The Day the Earth Stood Still, 51. I haven't seen The Day the Earth Stood Still. So I couldn't say how similar the two are. But presumably, it was a trend to sci-fi movies. Japan wanted on the bandwagon. And we got Battle from Outer Space. So not the worst. There are interesting aspects to it. If you're a big fan of the sci-fi genre, especially that era of sci-fi, it might be worth checking out. But overall, I'd say, Forbidden Planet. I'd rather watch Forbidden Planet. Maybe not War of the Worlds. I may like this better than War of the Worlds, but I don't know. I haven't seen War of the Worlds in a while. I liked the aesthetic. I liked the color design of it, but I didn't really like the movie that much. Do I still have War of the Worlds? I do. I still have the original War of the Worlds. We may watch this. I make no promises. Yeah, one of the more disappointing picks on this show so far. Not a complete disappointment. It was nice to sort of dive into the sci-fi genre. I feel like sci-fi is a little underrepresented on this show, so it's nice to have a sci-fi, like a full-on, straightforward sci-fi movie. And finally, we watched The H-Man, which, weirdly, I picked this because, I specifically bought this 3-pack because I wanted Battle in Outer Space, and yet, of the 3 on here, it's the one I enjoyed the least. Because I really liked H-Man. It was kind of fun. Sort of a bizarre Japanese predecessor to the melt movie genre of the late 70s, early 80s. There's this ghost. There's a ghost in this movie, and he can turn into green goo. Sort of, Ghostbuster style green ectoplasm. And if his green goo touches you, you melt. None of the meltings are particularly graphic. Maybe for the 50s. Maybe for the 50s this was a little graphic, but, you compare it to, like, Street Trash or The Incredible Melting Man, and it's like, those movies are really gross, and this one's not as much. But it is pretty fun. I did enjoy it quite a bit. Just these police trying to solve these murders where, like, the body just mysteriously disappears. And it's like, oh, it's 'cause they're melting. I don't know what else to say about this, really. I think I said it all right there, didn't I? There's a ghost, and he melts people. And there's a story of a guy who's, like, suspected of one of the murders, and he's on the run from the police, and he's trying to solve what happened to these people in order to prove his own innocence. And it turns out it's a ghost that's melting people. I enjoy it. I liked it. I liked it a lot. I wouldn't, like, rush out to try to find a copy of it right now. Like, Mothra, if you haven't seen Mothra, get out there and watch Mothra. If you haven't seen H-Man, it's like, it's a fun little novelty. You know, fun to know about if you care about those types of things. Alright, so this video is going up in what should have been Banned Films Week. Unfortunately, it got delayed. And I will say the one thing that prevented was me having to upload 3 videos in one day, because one of those projects was going to be 2 videos going up on the same day. And it almost definitely would have been the same day this video is going up, so that would have been 3 videos. So instead it's just this one. It's just Matt Presents. But for Banned Films Week, we are going to do a Video Nasties triple feature. So I would ask you what your favorite Video Nasty is, but the answer is Evil Dead. That is the correct answer. So instead, I'll just ask, what's your favorite banned film? You know? And I mean, that's a pretty broad category. Maybe I should ask, what's your favorite story of a banned film? What's your favorite story of a film getting banned? Because you could go like anywhere in the world, or you could find somewhere in the world that basically any movie is banned. And I think every movie was banned in like Saudi Arabia for a while. Just like the concept of movies were banned for a while. So arguably every movie is a banned movie, but even like getting down to the tiniest levels, fucking the new Pixar movie is banned in a couple countries in the Middle East. So maybe tell me a nice little story about banned movies, or just, you know, a movie that was banned in like a nation that isn't just banning every single movie. So we got a Video Nasties triple feature right here, and we're gonna start with a Mario Bava classic, A Bay of Blood, alternatively titled Twitch of the Death Nerve, also alternatively titled Carnage, also alternatively titled like a dozen other things, but those are the 3 titles you're likely to find it under. A Bay of Blood, Carnage, and Twitch of the Death Nerve. So I'm going to warn you about this next film. I kind of hate recommending Video Nasties that I haven't seen. This will probably be the only time I will recommend a Video Nasty I haven't seen. Because a lot of them are not good. A lot of them are pretty bad, actually. And at this point, I have watched almost all of them. There's like a dozen I still have left to see. And so I've seen most of the notable ones. Most of the ones that are worth watching. So I'm hoping this one... I know there's at least one story I can tell about it, but I'm hoping this one will be decent. It's Frozen Screams is the name of the film. I'm hoping it's good because Vinegar Syndrome put it out, and because I've heard from a few other places it's a good film, or at least an interesting film. Hopefully it will at least be an interesting film. I will say, I usually put the dates these films were released. Frozen Scream was released in 1975 or 1980. You will see it listed with both release dates. So, if you're like, wait, this movie's from 75, why does this streaming service say it's from 1980? It's both dates, somehow. And finally, we're going to look at Island of Death. This one is probably also against my better judgment, even though I have seen it. I will warn you about Island of Death. Island of Death is offensive in basically every way a film can be. So if you're sensitive to stuff, this may be one to sit out. You know, sensitive to, like, gore, obviously, rape, bestiality, incest, homophobia, some really blatant homophobia, anti-religious themes. if any of that gets to you, this might be one to skip. But I enjoy it. So we're going to watch it. Until next time, have a good day, and happy Banned Films Week, technically.